Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3684BN. Today's date is July 10th, 2025, and the title of the episode is Epstein Work for the CIA? Treason? Panic in D.C.? What storm, Mr. President? You'll find out. You know what's interesting? Most investments today feel like second jobs in disguise. Real estate, you're a landlord. Stocks, you're a day trader. Crypto, you're a full-time researcher. You've got a life to live. Your investment should help you live it. You deserve a strategy that builds wealth without sacrificing your time, sanity, or freedom. That's why more Americans are choosing gold. Gold doesn't demand your attention. It doesn't crash overnight. It doesn't care who's trending on Twitter. Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands of investors just like you, people who want both profit and peace of mind, secure their future with real physical gold. There's a reason smart investors are going back to the basics, choosing the only asset trusted by civilizations for over 5,000 years. Gold offers freedom and peace of mind, 1 ounce at a time. Visit x22gold.com to get your free wealth protection kit. That's x22gold.com. Don't invest in a second job. Invest in your freedom. And here's a bonus for you. Get rewarded for getting started. Open a qualified account at x22gold.com, and they'll send you 2 5-ounce Silver America, the beautiful coins, free. That is x22gold.com, or just click the link in the description. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see that they are now panicking in D.C. Why is that? Well, investigations have opened up. They're investigating Comey. They're investigating Brennan, which means one's going to lead to another, which is going to lead to another. And you can see those individuals now, they're going on CNN, MSNBC, and the rest, and they are now panicked because they see what is coming. Now, of course, what they're doing is they're trying to spin the story. They're trying to tell everyone that what's happening, it's politicized. Trump has nothing. It's all made up. And think about it. If everything else, like let's say Epstein, if all that was brought out into the open, they would say pretty much the same exact thing. And I do believe this is why it has to be built up and basically do what Trump always does. He allows information to come out. He allows the deep state players, the fake news, to spin it, to do whatever they have to, say it's all lies, what they're saying is untrue. And then once they finish with that, what normally happens is they bring out additional information which actually counters what they just said. Then, once again, what do? They tell everyone that, oh, that is a lie. That's not true. And then when they're finished with that, what happens next? Trump then brings out more information. And I don't mean it's Trump himself. It's the other agencies. This is how you trap the deep state in their own narrative. You bring out a little bit of information. You allow them to spin. You allow them to lie. You allow them to cover it up. And then you bring out additional information which counters everything that they just said. And this is how people can actually see the truth. This is how people can see what's really going on and who's right and who's wrong, instead of just dumping all the information. And this is a slow process. It's not fast. People need time to digest it because a lot of people don't even understand what's been happening. They don't realize how treasonous these people really are. And if you really want to see anything about Russian collusion, you can actually read Cash's book because he was the investigator. He investigated Russian collusion. His book is Government Gangsters, or they created a movie from the book, or you could watch that. And this actually really breaks it down and tells you what they did, how they created the coup, and what they did to go after Trump to try to stop him. Now, again, the coup didn't work. That's why they had to overthrow the United States government. And what people are going to learn is that all of this leads back to Obama. Obama is the key to all of this. It doesn't mean there aren't people that are above him who are instructing him. I'm just saying he was like the conductor of everything. And people are going to learn that he was the conductor of what happened here. And I do believe this is what Trump is doing. He's building this up. And you can see the people in D.C. right now, they are panicking. And once again, to actually put these people on trial, we can't use the D.C. courts. We can't use the federal judges because the entire judicial system has been corrupted so bad that you're not going to get a fair trial. And I think we've seen this already. And I do believe this is why Trump eventually wants to bring the information out. And eventually, as it continually builds and builds and builds, I think we'll probably have trials after the midterms, not before. And I think this is all the investigations, All the evidence is going to come out. Allow the deep state to do what they do best. And then after the midterms, when we have control of the House, we have control of the Senate, where we can replace a lot of these judges, then we will have trials. Now, again, if Trump can't clean up the judiciary, can't clean up a lot of the judges and prosecutors and attorney generals around the country to make it so the rule of law is followed, he will then take it to the next step. He will then move it to military tribunals. So will then basically designate these people as enemy combatants. But I do believe he wants to follow the rule of law. He wants to make sure that we use the Constitution, and he doesn't want to take that step. But again, that step is there if it is needed. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that we know that Epstein most likely was tied to intelligence agencies. And a lot of people say CIA, a lot of people say Mossad, but as of right now, it looks like Epstein definitely worked for the CIA. Now, let's put this into perspective. So if he did work for the CIA and maybe other foreign governments, we could throw that in there, and he went ahead and he brought politicians there, the intelligence agencies here and other foreign intelligence agencies, collected information on certain politicians, certain CEOs, certain foreign dignitaries, and this information was used to force these individuals into creating certain policies, creating certain laws, giving certain secrets to other countries. This is a national security threat. It's not just about the underage children. It's not about human trafficking. It's not just about child trafficking. Yes, those are very, very important. But this is much, much larger than originally thought. And it looks like Data Republican Mike Lee, it looks like they're now saying that, yes, Epstein worked for the CIA. And it looks like Epstein actually admitted that he worked for the CIA. So what I see happening right now with everything that's going on, I see that all the pieces of the storm now are coming together. And the storm is all the evidence from all the treasonous acts that they've committed. So now we have Epstein on deck. We have Russian collusion on deck. Next, we're already investigating the overthrow of the United States government in the 2020 election. So when you start to put all of this together, you could see how the storm is now building. And this reminds me, going all the way back to Trump's first term, when they asked the president, what storm are you talking about? He said, you'll find out. Now, I do believe that people wanted this to happen right away. But again, if you're going after the deep state system that's entrenched in our country, because they had many, many, many years to actually create this system, it takes a while to actually remove that system. And as you're removing that system, they're going to fight back with everything they have. And you can't bring anyone to justice yet, especially when the system is still there. You can't actually have a proper investigation until you clean out the agencies. And we could see if they're having the investigation right now, we can pretty much assume that a lot of these agencies, they're probably 80 to 90% clean right now. There might be other individuals that they're looking at and watching, but I do believe when all's said and done, and when we get to around the midterms, I do believe the agencies will be pretty darn clean. We'll have a clean house, which means that they can actually do proper investigations and they can go after these people. The justice part is something very, very different because, again, we're still battling the judiciary. We're still battling the system. But I do believe once we get control of the House and the Senate, that battle is going to come to an end. And I think in the end, we're going to have accountability and we're going to win the war against the deep state system. And you can see that Trump now, he's dismantling the system, not just here in this country, but around the world. And the system also includes the Federal Reserve. Because you have to remember, the deep state players, they were able to create the system that you see today because they were able to borrow money and use it to create the agencies, employ the people, launder the money, create the organizations like the WHO, the World Economic Forum, the World Bank. They had all this money where they created all these NGOs. So they got the funding from the Federal Reserve. And the way they got around anyone noticing that they were using this money for all these different things, they made up certain causes where they were going to send the money. And they just started to make things up. So this way, it looks like it was going for one of these causes and nobody would really question it. And no one would really look at, is the money really going there? Is the money really not going there? There was no one really to check because you have to remember the watchdogs, they were all part of the system because they needed to create all these different programs because if they just said, hey, we just want the money because we want to build a new organization, we want to create all these NGOs because we really want to launder the money, we want to build our system, that wouldn't fly. So they had to cover it up somehow. So they created all of this. So without the funding, all of this couldn't have happened. Because remember, who's responsible in paying all this back? It's we the people. So did they really care? All they did is they looked at it and said, listen, look how much money we can get. We get trillions of dollars. We can create anything we want. The people won't even know that we're creating all these NGOs. People won't even know that we're creating these organizations where all of this will work against the people. And we'll just let them, pay it back. We'll just say, hey, we need more taxes because we're going to borrow more. That's what they've done. And I do believe what Trump is doing right now, he's dismantling it all. He's shutting it all down. And I do believe one of his last acts is to get rid of the Federal Reserve. Because once you remove the funding and we have a finite amount of money, it's very, very difficult to say, listen, I need it for, LGBTQ snails. That's a study going on in Pakistan or something. It just won't fly. It just won't work. So I do believe this is what Trump is doing. And yes, are we still battling the deep state system? Absolutely. We're not finished with all of this because the main goal here is to get full control and give the control back to the people. And that's what we see happening right now. It's a very good start that we have our people in place in all these different agencies. Those people then are cleaning out the agencies, putting the people in there that really want to do the right job, building trust again in our government system, because right now the trust is down in the dirt here. So as this continues to happen and as we approach the midterms, I do believe people are going to move to the side of Trump, especially as they feel the economy getting better. Because the economy, a lot of people, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, makes no difference. If you're feeling good in the economy and you're making money, you can get a job and your buying power comes back, this really is going to help Trump out. And I do believe as we roll into 2026, we're going to see the economy really take off and people are going to say, you know what, everything that he's been talking about with tariffs and everything like that is working. The Fed, the D's, the fake news, they're going to lose the narrative and everything that they said is going to be actually all fake, phony, and false. So we're going to see a lot of people move to Trump's corner, just like we did in the 2024 election. And this is how we were able to override their cheating system. And I do believe this time around, as we approach the midterms, I do believe the candidates that Trump is endorsing right now, some of them you might like, some of them you might not like. I mean, like Lindsey Graham. A lot of people don't like Lindsey Graham. Yes, he worked with McCain. But again, sometimes you have to keep your enemies closer and you have to use them for what you need them for. And it looks like Trump has been using Lindsey for quite a while. And I do believe Trump's endorsements, I do believe that every time he does this, those individuals that are part of the Rhino group, neocons, they're all going to be primaried. I think the D's, on the other hand, they have their own problems because all the people now are watching everything very, very carefully. They understand that they allowed all these illegals into their cities, into their neighborhoods. And I think the people are going to be turning against them. And you remember, the only way they survive, the only way they win is by cheating, by bringing in all the illegals. Their support is not the American people. Their support are the illegals and their cheating system. And that is a very, very big difference. So everything that we're witnessing, everything that we're seeing right now, I do believe the people are going to feel something very, very different as we approach the midterms. Now, of course, we know the deep state players, the Ds, they're going to try to push riots. They're going to try to stop this because, remember, they don't want to give up their system. But I think every step of the way, as Trump is exposing their system, they're losing their grip. And in the end, they won't have the power. They won't have the ability to counter anything that we're doing. And especially when we get control of the House and the Senate. We'll be talking a lot more about this a little bit later and a lot more about Epstein. But first, let's talk about what Secretary Brooke Rollins is doing right now, because it looks like we have a problem with the U.S.-Mexico border because it looks like there's a new world screwworm and it's affecting cattle. This is what she put out. I have ordered an immediate shutdown of live cattle, bison, and horse trade through the southern U.S.-Mexico border. The decisive action comes after Mexico confirmed another case of New World screwworm in Veracruz. As promised, USDA remains vigilant to ensure the protection. So it looks like we have a problem, and it's a good thing that she is taking control of the situation because, again, think about what Biden has done. He wouldn't have been on top of this whatsoever, and they would have pushed this very, very hard because, remember, their agenda was what? To actually stop us from eating meat and actually have us eat bugs. Doge AI says, the USDA's immediate shutdown of southern ports after Mexico's latest screwworm cases proved decisive enforcement works. Unlike the Biden-era chaos that let pests and unchecked migration surge, Secretary Rollins' move mirrors Trump's border security playbook, aggressive monitoring, zero tolerance for foreign negligence, and prioritizing American ranchers. The $21 million sterile fly investment in Texas dispersal facility are critical, but real success comes from unapologetic policies like Remain in Mexico, which collapsed fraudulent asylum claims and slashed illegal crossings. Mexico's failure to contain NWS despite U.S. aid exposes systematic incompetence, something Trump's ICE and CBP crackdowns would have prevented. Reopening ports only after verifiable eradication, that's the rigor missing under open border theatrics. Let's see if Mexico's new inspections are more than performative. Past empty promises got us here. And I do believe it's going to be very, very different this time around. Now, we could see it's already happening. Now, the other thing that we talked about yesterday was Douglas Mackey, when we saw that the DOJ was going after him for the meme that he put up during the election between Trump and Hillary Clinton. And what's very interesting about all this, and Hans explains that it wasn't actually Biden that went after Douglas Mackey. It was actually one of Trump's appointees that went after Douglas Mackey, which is very, very interesting because, again, a lot of the people that were brought to Trump's attention, it was done on purpose because they were actually still putting their people in place. And I think Trump, he figured this out and he realized that, yeah, we're not going to listen to any of these people anymore. But Hans, he put this out and he said, for the last time, Douglas Mackey was not targeted by the Biden administration. He was targeted by Trump appointee Seth Ducharme, who maliciously filed the incident immediately after Trump left office, ensuring there was no chance for a pardon. So it looks like it was done on purpose. And that is very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that's really interesting is that we already know that Karen Bass, she is in line with Communist Party. She was a Castro operative. But we've come to find something else about Karen Bass. And you can see this is why they installed her as mayor in California. Data Republican put this out and said, remember this thread where it was pointed out that LA Mayor Karen Bass was a Castro operative. Well, we may have to upgrade Karen Bass to actual foreign terrorists. This is the woman who was vice chair of NED. So basically, they found an article and it actually points to Karen Bass. And according to a 1973 intelligence document provided to the Times, she traveled to Cuba with the 6th contingent of the Venceremos Brigade. The brigade trains revolutionary-prone Americans in terrorist tactics and guerrilla warfare while claiming to harvest sugarcane. Bass, characterized as a brigade leader, returned from Cuba to the U.S., bringing back propaganda literature. The document noted without citing the source of the information. So this was an older article, and it looks like that she was well trained as a communist, trained as a terrorist, and now she's the mayor of L.A. Very, very interesting. And you can see this is why they install all of these people. Because, again, it's infiltration from within. And now we're uncovering this, we're exposing it, and people can see this firsthand. Now, the other thing that we can see with the fires out in California, now we are starting to understand why it's taking so long for the permitting. And I think we already knew this from the very, very beginning. Remember, California, that is the template for the Green New Scam, for the new world that they want to create. And again, what they're doing right now is they don't want people to own anything. They don't want people to actually own property. They just want you paying over time. So this way they can take it away from you anytime they want. Think about it. Think about Amazon Prime. Think about Apple. All the music, the movies and things like that. You used to have like VHS tapes. You used to have DVDs. You had them in your house. You owned them. It was yours. You could watch them anytime you wanted. Now, if they want to just shut everything down, you lose everything. It's all gone. Just like that. But what we've come to find out, and Gavin Newsom put this out, he said, with California HCD, we're delivering $101 million to help rapidly rebuild affordable multi-family rental housing for Angelenos displaced by the January wildfires. We're ensuring that everyone affected by this tragedy has a safe and affordable place to come home to. So wait a minute. What about all those people that had their homes? Why do they want to rent now? They don't. Cartel California says the following. So the truth is coming out. Gavin Newsom, or Newscum, who has a lot of blame for the SoCal fires, is basically saying he's going to steal taxpayer money to build ghettos that people he displaced can rent. It's obviously a money grab, folks. Sad, this guy has to go. And this is all part of their plan. And people, they don't want to rent their homes. They want to rebuild the homes that burnt down. So you can see what they're actually trying to do. And this is why they're slow walking all of these permits, which is absolutely ridiculous. And once again, the question is, do you really own your own home? Because if you're continually paying property tax and they can take your home away at any time, even if it's paid off, if they could take your home away, do you really own it? No. So I do believe this has to change because, again, our founding fathers, they didn't want the government or the states to have the ability to take something away from you that you already paid for because you don't pay the government the taxes. Think about that for a second. Now, the other thing that we could see, and once again, another judge is coming out of the shadows, we could see they are now trying to block Trump's birthright citizenship for illegal aliens. And basically, this is U.S. District Court Judge Joseph Laplante. He announced that he would issue a preliminary injunction against Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship for illegals and narrow the class covered to children only. So Laplante was nominated by George W. Bush, and right now he's going to grant a 7-day stay of order for court efficiency. So you can see they changed tactics. Instead of doing the nationwide injunctions, now they're setting different classes for people to try to stop this. Now, once again, we can see that this is now pulling out more and more judges, and we're starting to see who they are. And I do believe in the end, Trump wants as many of these judges to come out of the shadows so we know who they are so we can get rid of them. And this most likely will be appealed like it normally is. It will go up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court eventually is going to have to rule on it, and they'll say, listen, you can't start making class of different people like this. It's unconstitutional. You're out of your zone. And I do believe this will be shut down. And of course, what are they going to do? They're going to try something else. So another set of judges will then come out and they'll try that. And they'll keep doing this over and over and over. And again, the Constitution is always going to win. And Trump, he explains in the executive order why the 14th Amendment has always excluded infants, born individuals illegally present in the United States. The 14th Amendment has never been interpreted to extend citizenship universally to everyone born within the United States. The 14th Amendment has always excluded from birthright citizenship persons who were born in the United States but not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Consistent with this understanding, the Congress has further specified through legislation that a person born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof is a national and a citizen of the United States at birth. 8 U.S.C. 1401. So Trump and the Constitution and history tells us that just because you hop over a fence, or at the time there is no fence, you just hop over the border and you're pregnant and you give birth, that individual is not a U.S. citizen. It doesn't work that way. And once again, you could see the deep state players, they're trying to stop this because once this is shut down, their entire system starts to fall apart. And once it starts to fall apart, it means they can't just bring in pregnant illegals and have them just give birth and then bring over their parents. And once this is shut down, and once the Supreme Court rules that constitutionally this is unconstitutional. So this is going to destroy the deep state system. And they know this. This is what they're trying to stop. Their system is based on all of this. And we could see this is why they're going after all the Border Patrol, ICE, and you name it, because they're trying to shut it down in a certain way where they're trying to attack these individuals. And this is why the Border Patrol, ICE, and the rest, this is why they're wearing masks, because, again, they're doxing these people. They're going after their families, and assaults are way, way up. Election Wizard put this out and said, ICE, assaults against federal officers and agents have risen by nearly 700%. That will not stop us from enforcing immigration laws. And you can see the deep state players have given Antifa and others and the illegals instructions to go after go after ICE, go after the Border Patrol, find out where their families are, and use threats or actually really attack them now. They moved into physical attacks at this point, and you can see that they're moving away from information, moving away from propaganda, and they're moving towards physical attacks now. They're changing everything up because they're panicking. The only reason you do anything like this is because you're losing the battle. And when you lose the battle, what happens? You start to use different tactics. And this is how you know we're winning every step of the way. But Stephen Miller said something very, very interesting, because Wall Street Apes put this out. And this is what Wall Street Ape says. How many illegals are really in Los Angeles, California? This is the 101 freeway, one of the busiest freeways in LA. This is just outside of Los Angeles, heading into LA at 8 a.m. on a workday. If you've been to LA, you know how insane this is. Illegals are hiding from ICE. The roads are kind of empty. There's no traffic. Stephen Miller said, what if the entire time the key to fixing our cities was enforcing our immigration laws? I think he's onto something. I do believe that probably has been the problem. Plus, you have all those D's in the blue cities where they allow criminals to do whatever they want. So if you remove the illegals, you remove the criminal illegals, what's going to happen? Your city is going to change rapidly. And if you actually follow the rule of law and you keep the police, you're going to have an incredible city. So I do believe Steve Miller, he is definitely onto something. And it seems that the Gateway Pundit is onto something in regards to Epstein. Because the entire narrative that people now are looking at, that, hey, the video shows that Epstein killed himself. There's no evidence that Epstein did anything. All they have is child porn. I do believe this is a psyop. I do believe that they have the evidence. I don't think anything is actually destroyed. Even though people want to say, okay, the FBI doesn't have it right now, the DOJ doesn't have it right now. Again, why would they destroy all the Epstein information? Because they use that information to blackmail certain individuals in this country. If they destroyed the Epstein evidence, why didn't they just destroy all the Russian collusion evidence? Let's talk about our health. The science is in. A clinical trial found that just 10 grams of collagen a day for 8 weeks led to a roughly 20% increase in skin hydration and a 17% improvement in elasticity, while also visibly reducing wrinkle depth. If you want to help improve your skin health, it's clear that collagen is essential. This is why I use the Secret Magical Powder, and I'm obsessed with the results. Multi-collagen provides my skin with 5 types of premium collagen to help attack wrinkles from every angle. I'm seeing smoother skin, more elasticity, fewer lines, and more youthful glow. Plus, multi-collagen mixes smoothly with my morning coffee or tea. There's no clumping and zero added flavor. Do yourself a big favor and grab yourself a bag of ageless multi-collagen now for 51% off only at healthwithx22.com. Plus, by ordering today, you'll also receive free VIP life health and fitness coaching for life and a free ebook titled The 14 Foods for Amazing Skin, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, and free shipping with your order. Once again, this offer is only available at healthwithx22.com. That's healthwithx22.com, or just click the link in the description. I do believe when Trump got into office in 2016, during his 4 years, because remember, he took them by surprise, they didn't have time to get rid of everything. And I do believe certain things were kept and they were saved. And I do believe Trump, the Patriots, they have all this information. And when Biden came in, I do believe they tried to destroy as much as they possibly could. But again, I do believe Trump, since he had classified access, he was able to see everything. And once again, it looks like this evidence, because it just doesn't have to do with human trafficking, child trafficking. it goes far, far beyond that. Like we've said multiple times, this goes into a national security problem in this country. And there's multiple agencies that are involved in all of this. But what the Gateway Pundit actually found out is that the level that Epstein was on, well, it looks like it was a room on the upper level L tier where they found him, not the lower level floor shown in the video. Jeffrey Epstein was housed in cell 220 on the upper level tier, which is level L, not the lower level as falsely reported by Legacy Media. This official DOJ image proves L tier is an elevated cell block accessible only by the stairway behind door 46. Jeffrey Epstein was housed in the M tier until after he was attacked in prison. Epstein was then put on suicide watch in July. Epstein was later moved to the L tier, the upper tier, where he was found dead in his cell number 220 on August 10th. The video that was missing a full minute, specifically 61 seconds, spliced out at exactly 11:59 p.m. the night before Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell roughly 6.5 hours later. Bondi said the prison told her that the cameras reset at this time. And she said, so that means that all videos should have this splice, and they're going to look to see if all the videos have this splice in it. Now, I do believe she said it in that way because now the prison is telling her this, and the prison now lied to her. So she could say we're reopening the case, or they lied to us and we looked at all the videos and they're not spliced at the same time that this one is. So something is wrong here. And now a devastating revelation obliterates the mainstream narrative. Epstein's cell was located in L tier, a secure upper-level corridor, not on the lower level, as widely and falsely reported across corporate media outlets. Now, who was feeding the corporate media, the propaganda networks, this information? Was it certain people in the prison? Was it the Ds? Was it the intelligence operatives? It was all the above. So what we see now is that Epstein was on L tier. So the exact number of cells in L tier of the 10 South Special Housing Unit at MCC New York has never been officially published. But according to multiple prison review reports and testimonies, it appears that there were between 6 to 8 individual cells in Epstein's L tier. The surveillance footage you will see was taken from the closed circuit television, also known as a closed system, DVR. The camera angle is positioned outside of Epstein's L tier. The camera is facing down at tier M. At precisely 4:16:22, the video timestamp, 11:59 p.m., overlay clock time, the surveillance footage suddenly skips forward exactly 61 seconds, entirely bypassing the embedded overlay minute of 11:59. The break jumps from 11:58:59 p.m. directly to 12 a.m. So definitely something's wrong. Now, again, if the clocks actually reset, we should see this same exact cut in every single video going back in time, and going forward in time, we should see the cuts. Now, this is something that has to be brought out into the open, and people have to see that, yes, every single video has the same exact cut. Now, do you really think that the system resets exactly at this moment when something happened to Epstein? I don't think so. But we'll have to see how this plays out. Now, the other thing that we could see, and maybe this is why they went ahead and they spliced the video, is because we're starting to realize that Epstein, it looks like he was working for the intelligence community. Mike Lee put this out and said, I've been asked today why I think Jeffrey Epstein might have been a government asset. Let's unpack the case. His connection, wealth, and influence raise red flags. Was he just a financier or something more? Epstein's plea deal in 2008 was unusually lenient. Sex trafficking charges dropped, 13 months in a cushy jail with work release. Prosecutors hinted at intelligence ties. The U.S. attorney handling the case said he was told Epstein belonged to intelligence. Coincidence? His personal network was a who's who list that would make a king blush. Politicians, royalty, tech moguls, etc. Why did so many powerful people trust a convicted felon? Was he collecting dirt for someone? Blackmail operations often used for honeypots? Epstein's Island fit the bill. Flight logs show VIPs on the Lolita Express no scrutiny for years, FBI and DOJ slow-walked investigations. Did powerful people shield him? Government agencies routinely use shady figures to gather intelligence. Think MKUltra and COINTELPRO. The source of Epstein's wealth remains unclear, to put it mildly. No clear record of how he amassed his vast fortune. Shell companies, shadow accounts. Sounds like a setup for laundering or funneling funds. Government assets are known to get sponsored to play their roles. So where do you think the money was coming from? Think about all the NGOs. Think of all the money laundering. His death in 2019, quickly ruled a suicide, occurred in a high-security jail cell, one designed to thwart suicide attempts. Cameras off, guards asleep, news questionable, too convenient. If Epstein was a government asset, and to be clear, I have no knowledge of that beyond what I'm saying here, gleaned entirely from publicly reported non-classified sources, silencing him would presumably protect the puppet masters. Who benefits from Epstein's silence? Well, it would protect all these people. And again, this goes to national security now, which is very, very interesting. And then we have Data Republican. And she got help from Lamps_Apple. And they found an article in the Evening Standard from Monday, January 22nd, 2001, page 287. And it shows that Epstein claimed that he worked for the CIA. So is this confirmation that he worked for the CIA? He might have worked for other agencies, maybe Mossad, maybe some other foreign intelligence agencies. Maybe they were all working together. But again, this is a major, major problem now because, again, the deep state players that were within our own government, they were using him to push their agenda, which is a national security threat. If they were involved, and let's say the CIA was involved in blackmailing politicians, blackmailing tech people in this country, I'm not even saying outside of this country, within this country, that is a national security concern. So it's actually a threat. So I do believe that this is much, much bigger, and there are many other agencies that are involved in all of this. And I do believe what Trump is doing is he's allowing the Ds, the fake news, they're building the narrative for all of this. He's not. He's sitting back going, I don't want to have anything to do with it. He's actually allowing them to create this narrative, put it out into the public realm, so people hear the name Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. And now people are starting to question all of this. 8-Track, also known as Mark, put this out and said, I would not worry so much. Trump didn't just throw his legacy away. 2004, banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. 2005, reported Epstein's behavior to authorities. 2009, cooperated with Epstein's victims' lawyers. 2017, signed executive orders targeting human trafficking. 2019, Epstein arrested during Trump's presidency in 2019. FBI raid on Epstein's island, 2025. Released Epstein files phase. Trump was the first person to speak out about Epstein many years ago. Trump banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago when he found out. Trump's DOJ was the first to make Epstein a public figure and arrest him. Trump admin has been the strongest on trafficking in history. He didn't just change his mind and try to bury it. If he wanted to bury it, do you think he would make such a blatant public statement that would destroy him like that? It's clearly a psyop. The entire world was talking about Epstein and demanding his files, including Dems and the mainstream media, on the same day that Bibi was in the White House. That's not a coincidence. Don't let emotions cloud your discernment. This is only the beginning, not the end. Today is a major Q delta. It's the end date for when Q said next 6 years. It's not a coincidence that all hell broke loose that day before. It's not a coincidence that we are seeing biblical flooding across the country. Things are happening, big things. God is good, and he's using Trump. Keep your faith strong. We got this. And I do believe that this is all a psyop. Everything's being put into place because, once again, if you read The Art of the Deal, Art of War, you can see that Trump, he stands in the back. It's almost like Obama. If you study Obama and you study Trump, they almost use the same exact tactics. You think Obama is not involved in anything when he's involved in everything. You think Trump is not doing anything while he's doing everything in the background. Remember, there's a silent war that is going on right now that we're not privy to. And Trump and Obama, if you notice, they both sit back there and they make it look like they have nothing to do with anything that's going on. Even though Obama is the conductor and he's going after Trump, Trump now is using everything that he has, which is going to expose Obama. And they both look like they're doing nothing when they're doing a lot behind the scenes. That's what the silent war is. It's a war that you really don't see. You only see the stuff that they want you to see. So I do believe this is exactly what's going on right now. And again, the optics look really good for Trump. I'm not doing anything with Epstein. Actually, I didn't even know that there was an investigation going on with Brennan and Clapper. He's the master at making it seem like he has no idea what's going on. And people take this that he really doesn't know what's going on. He knows what's going on. What he says out in the open is very different than what's going on behind the scenes. Now, the other thing that we could see happening right now is that NASA, they're going to be cutting a lot of the different agencies. And it looks like over 2,000 senior NASA staff, they're set to leave following the White House plan to gut the space agency. So here are some of the things that they're gutting. Goddard Space Flight Center, 607 staff. Johnson Space Center, 366. Kennedy Space Center, 311. NASA Headquarters, 307. Langley, 281. Marshall, 279. Glenn, 191. And it looks like Trump just placed Secretary Duffy into the position to head up NASA temporarily. He's the interim administrator of NASA. And Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following: I'm pleased to announce that I am directing our great Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, to the interim administration of NASA. Sean is doing a tremendous job in handling our country's transportation affairs, including creating a state-of-the-art air traffic control system, while at the same time rebuilding our roads and bridges, making them efficient and beautiful again. He'll be a fantastic leader of the ever more important space agency, even if only for a short period of time. Congratulations. Thank you, Sean. And I do believe he's going to do a very good job as interim. And we're going to see that we're going to lead once again in the space race. Because if you really look at NASA right now, what have they done in the many, many years? Not much. Actually, you can see Obama, Biden, and the rest, they wanted to get rid of all of it. And now we're bringing it back. And if you look, the technology hasn't really improved. We haven't really gone anywhere out in space. And it looks like NASA just came to a complete stop. Now it's time to push it forward and create new technology where we can reach out into space. And let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, think about it. Just the last couple of days, Trump put out 2 warnings to Brazil. And now Trump, he is now placing a 50% tariff on Brazil. Remember, he said, leave Bolsonaro alone. And now he's placed a 50% tariff on Brazil. And what's very interesting is that this 50% tariff, it'll be separate from all sectoral tariffs. So this is an addition. Now, of course, what did Brazil do? Brazil now is vowing to match the U.S. tariffs. Now, didn't Canada try this? Didn't Europe try this? Didn't many countries say, oh, yeah, look what we're going to do? Now, if they match the U.S. with 50%, what do you think Trump is going to do? Well, now it's 75%. Who do you think is going to win in the tariff war? I think we all know it's the U.S. because all these countries are dependent on the United States. And remember, are we going to need any of these countries? Are we going to need the oil? Are we going to need the rare earth minerals? Are we going to need coal? Are we going to need anything from any of these countries? Absolutely not. Actually, the United States is self-sufficient. And this is what the deep state players have been trying to steal from us. They wanted us to think that we weren't. They wanted everyone to think that we were dependent on other countries. We are not. And now Trump, he's reversing all of this. Remember, they set all of this up for the globalist central bank system. Trump now is dismantling and reversing everything the globalists and the central banks have done. And now we are now taking back control of energy, taking back control of manufacturing, taking back control of all of it. And this is going to be very, very interesting as we move forward. And this is something the deep state players do not want to happen. Now, the other thing that we could see is that the story out there is that Pete Hegseth decided to pause the delivery of weapons to Ukraine. And we're starting to see that all this information is kind of fake. It looks like the fake news is just making this stuff up. Zachary Cohen put this out and said, Secretary of Defense Hegseth did not inform the White House before he authorized a pause of weapons shipments to Ukraine last week. 5 sources tell Natasha, Bertrand, and me, setting off a scramble inside the administration to understand why the halt was implemented. Sean Parnell responded to this and said, first of all, this story is a complete and total fabrication. On a related note, one of the CNN journalists involved in this fake narrative is a well-established hoaxer. We made sure to mention that in our comment, but CNN omitted it from the story. The CNN reporter, who is a proven hoaxer, is trying to sow division where none exists. It is the job of the Secretary of Defense to make military recommendations to the Commander-in-Chief. Secretary Hegseth provided a framework for the President to evaluate military aid shipments and assess existing stockpiles. This effort was coordinated across government. The department will continue to give the President robust options regarding military aid to Ukraine, consistent with his goal of bringing this tragic war to an end and putting American first. So basically, we could see that the deep state players, they like to create things out of thin air. Like, that's why they call it the fake news. And this whole story that, Trump is now giving weapons to Ukraine. No, he's not giving offensive weapons. He's giving defensive weapons. Very, very different. Because offensive weapons, you can actually attack Russia. Defensive weapons is you're trying to stop the attacks from Russia. And Secretary Rubio makes it very, very clear. There wasn't a policy decision not to give weapons to Ukraine. No one ever said we're not sending weapons to Ukraine. We're looking for creative ways to provide them these defensive weapons. Again, these are defensive weapons, he says. And that's exactly what's happening. But again, the deep state players, they don't want Ukraine to have defensive weapons. They want defensive and offensive weapons. But again, Trump's not going to give them offensive weapons. So let's see. Now only one side has weapons, and Putin is using them against Ukraine. Remember, I don't believe it's Putin that's where the problem lies. I do believe it's Zelensky, the EU, the deep state players. That's where the problem lies. Because again, they do not want peace. They want the war to continue. So they're the ones who have been pushing back. They're the ones who have been making problems. And I do believe Trump now, he set himself right in the middle, and he just blames it all on Putin. Yes, he's a very nice guy. I talked to him, but that's all bullshit. It's meaningless because the war is continuing. And you have to remember, who started this war? Was it Putin? Or was it the deep state players? Was it Obama? Was it Biden? Was it Victoria Nuland? Was it Hillary Clinton? Remember, they overthrew the government in Ukraine. They had a color revolution. They took control of the entire country in 2014, 2015. And ever since then, what has happened? There's been a war. They're the ones who started the war. And now Trump is trying to figure out a way to stop it. I do believe he already figured it out. I do believe that he has to let this wind down and make Ukraine and the deep state players actually say, I give. And I do believe this is probably a war of attrition. Because if you're not getting the money and you only have defensive weapons and Putin is using every weapon against Ukraine, it's very, very one-sided then, isn't it? And it's controlled also. So I do believe that Ukraine is going to be suffering. The EU will not be able to support Ukraine. Ukraine is not part of NATO, and they don't have the funds. They're going to dry up very quickly, and they'll have nothing. So let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is that RFK Jr. right now, he is going after Big Pharma, and he has to be very, very careful in what he does with vaccines, because you have to remember, Big Pharma, vaccines, that's their whole life. That's everything revolves around vaccines. But Lauren Lee put out a really good thread on X, and it says the following. 6 major medical groups, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, just sued HHS for illegal conduct on vaccine approval. And JFK Jr. is smiling. Why? They just walked into his trap. One he talked about for years. Here's the game plan. Lately, some in the medical freedom world have questioned why RFK Jr. hasn't already pulled COVID shots from the market. But it's not that simple. If he moved too fast, pharma would hit back hard and win. Instead, he's following a careful strategy that he's talked about at length for years. RFK Jr. has said it plainly over and over. There is a rule in federal court called the Daubert Rule. RFK Jr. has said it plainly over and over. Say you think Coca-Cola made you obese. You can't sue Coca-Cola unless there's at least a critical mass of studies, maybe 20 to 30, that say that's what it does. Once you get that critical mass, then you can go into a jury. Once enough science is out there, the lawyers are going to cone out the woodwork. And they're going to be representing 1 million kids with diabetes. And the company is going to say, we're not going to make this product anymore. That's the key. His goal, achieve a critical mass of replicable studies that can survive every legal test. So when pharma finally stands trial, they lose. And RFK Jr. knows how to win in court better than anyone. So what counts as a critical mass? Let's look at Daubert versus Merrill Dow, 1993. The court protected the pharmaceutical company despite what most would consider overwhelming evidence, numerous animal studies, substantial in vitro data and independent studies, expert testimony, personal witness testimony of harm. In another case, Zoloft, an SSRI manufactured by Pfizer, allegedly caused congenital heart defects and other birth defects when taken during pregnancy. The evidence presented by plaintiffs was substantial. Multiple epidemiological studies, numerous animal studies suggesting teratogenic effects. Case reports and adverse events data from FDA's own database. Meta-analysis attempting to synthesize the data to argue for causation. The courts still sided with Pfizer. Vioxx, Merck, was also protected under Daubert, even with the Vigor trial showing heart attack risks, observational and post-marketing data, internal documents, cardiologist testimony, all thrown out. Merck won. That's where this lawsuit comes in. That's the battlefield RFK Jr. is walking into. He knows he has to prepare for it with military precision. To defeat pharma, he needs ironclad replicable science and multiple other low-level verdicts on his side. So you could see this is where he's moving. He's moving in this direction, and he's going to go after pharmaceutical companies. Again, as you can see, it's almost like the same strategy that Trump has been using this entire time. It might take longer than everyone wants it to be, but in the end, I do believe he's going to win. And it looks like they're already finally scared enough. This week, 6 groups sued RFK Jr. and HHS for replacing ACIP members, removing the COVID shutter from the childhood schedule. These groups include AAP, ACP, APHA, IDSA, SMFM, and PHA. But these aren't independent medical orgs. They're no better than pharma front groups funded to push products. So basically, they have all their organizations out there going after RFK Jr. And as he does all these studies, as he collects all this information, he's going to use it against Big Pharma to actually remove a lot of these vaccines and actually hold them accountable in the end. And this is going to be absolutely interesting how this all plays out. Because you have to remember, going directly at the deep state or Big Pharma or anything like that, they will beat you every single time. So you have to change up strategies. And I do believe this is why Trump didn't go directly at the deep state players. Yes, it might take 10 years. But think about it. If he went directly at them, what would the deep state do? They would either use a dirty nuke. They would try to bring us right to war. They would do everything to hurt the people of this country. And I do believe this is what he's been protecting. He didn't want a revolutionary war, a civil war, or any other type of war. So he took the long way around in waking up the people. And he exposed the deep state players for what it is. Because once the people are awake, you have the people on your side. Once the people are awake and the deep state loses them, they never get them back. And if you have the whole country against you, who's going to win if anything happens? Well, it would be Trump and the people. This is why he created the counterinsurgency from the very, very beginning. And this is why he's leaning so hard or heavily on the Constitution, because he knows the Constitution backs him up in everything that he's doing. And it will work against the deep state players because the founders, they created the Constitution to work against a deep state system. It was created for this purpose. That's why they did it, because they just fought a deep state system, a tyrannical government. So they created the Constitution to go up against a deep state system. That's why we always win. It might take some time, but in the end, we will always win. Just like we won the Supreme Court battle with parental rights over school LGBTQ books in the classrooms. So the Supreme Court ruled that the parents have the right to opt their children out of public school lessons involving LGBTQ, because there are many parents that don't want this involved. Actually, I don't think they should be teaching this whatsoever. But again, you could see now the parents have the ability to say, no, you're not teaching my child this. Now, think about this. Take this a step further. Once we have competitive schools, and I do believe the money has to follow the child, you know what people are going to do? The people are going to say, well, I don't want my child going to school anymore. I'm going to send my child to this better school over here that doesn't do that. And you know what's going to happen? The schools are going to have to make a decision, because they're not going to have the money. If the money follows the child, a lot of these schools are going to be in trouble unless they change their ways. And I do believe this is where this is all headed. And the first step was what? Getting rid of the Department of Education. And now you could see that is being shut down. And you can see the deep state players, they're angry about everything. They're panicking over everything. And yes, the FBI is cleaning out their department, just like the DOJ, DNI, DHS, and the rest. Patriots Are Control put this out and said, this is pretty damn funny. This former FBI agent says Dan Bongino fired him because he was friends with a known Trump critic. That's what MSNBC calls him. So who was this Trump critic? He was friends with, just little old innocent Peter Strzok. Yeah, I'd say if you're friends with a guy who colluded to overthrow the president of the United States, you probably deserve to be shit-canned. So he immediately ran to MSNBC and he started to complain about this. I don't think this is going to work out too well for him. And what's very interesting is that during a press conference, a question was asked to Trump about James Comey and John Brennan. Now, Trump, I do believe, because of optics, he doesn't like to say, oh, yeah, I knew about this. This is what we're doing. He always says, oh, no, this is a surprise to me. Because, again, it looks like he's doing nothing. Just like we said from the very, very beginning with Obama and Trump. Melissa Holman put this out and said, this is what Ducey asked him. James Comey and John Brennan, now under criminal investigation related to the Trump-Russia probe. Do you want to see these two guys behind bars? Trump, I know nothing about it other than what I read today, but I will tell you, I think they're very dishonest people. I think they're crooked as hell, and maybe they have to pay a price for that. I believe they are truly bad people and dishonest people. So whatever happens, happens. If you notice, he doesn't say, yeah, they ruined my life. They orchestrated a coup. Obama was behind it, and all of them should be in jail. He always says, whatever happens, happens. They should pay the price. But I'm not really involved in any of this. I have no knowledge of any of this. And you can see the deep state players, they are now panicking over all this. We have Brennan, he's on, the CNN, MSNBC, trying to spin the story, saying that, oh, no, everything that's been going on that they're talking about is BS. It's all lies. We have Mark Elias doing the same exact thing. Storm Azariah put this out and said, ha, ha, ha. I can't stop laughing at how hilarious it is to watch these criminals squirm after finding out that Brennan and Comey are under investigation. Mark Elias is literally begging the media not to report on the investigation. Good luck with that, buddy. And this is what Mark Elias says. I'm imploring, honestly, I'm just imploring the media. Do not report this as a legitimate investigation. Do not report this as they're opening an investigation into John Brennan, and we'll see where it goes. Report this as the misuse, the abuse, the authoritarian takeover of the DOJ. That should be the headline. Oh, the irony. Panic in D.C. Basically, he just projected everything that they did. They're the ones who did this. And this is all going to be backed up with documentation. Remember, Cash, he wrote the book on this. He did the investigation. That's what his book covers, Government Gangsters, and the film that came out via the book. And it breaks it down how they actually did all of this. He uncovered it all. And he worked with Devin Nunes. So right there, that tells you everything you need to know. Paul Sperry put this out and said, Transcripts prove Brennan, Comey, Clapper, McCabe made false statements under oath when they denied using Hillary's dossier to juice U.S. intelligence against Trump. So remember all those times they were in front of Congress? Well, the reason why this is done, because it catches them in a lie. They lied to Congress. Now the truth is coming out. And now they have to say, listen, did you lie? Which is the truth? And now they're trapped in all of this. And Cash is now the chief investigator investigating all of this. And he's the one who uncovered all of it. Now he's in the position of the FBI director. I do believe that all the pieces of the storm are now coming together. We have an investigation into the auto pen. We have an investigation into the politicization of government. We have an investigation into Brennan, Comey, and this is going to lead to many more people. Yes, there's an investigation into the Epstein files, because you have to remember, even though they're telling us there's nothing going on, Judicial Watch is saying, listen, I'm asking for the investigation. I'm asking for evidence of the investigation through the Freedom of Information Act request. And they're telling me that there's an investigation still going on and they're searching for my documents. So there is still something going on. I do believe they set all this up to trap all these people. So all these different pieces, they're all coming together. And I do believe they're all going to come together to make the perfect storm. And this perfect storm is going to be the storm that actually hits D.C. and all of the deep state players. But Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said, the great Greg Jarrett, it's clear Trump was framed. The collusion narrative was a conspiracy itself. The collaborators knew it was a lie, but they manipulated the dossier and the CIA to peddle their fairy tale. Brennan and Comey manipulated the system and the document itself. They abused their power. Comey launched a case against Trump in violation of the FBI regulations. He deceived the FISA court with the dossier to gain a spy warrant. John Brennan used the dossier knowing it was garbage, and he insisted if he put it in the Intelligence Committee assessment, he knew it was such a phony document that if it could be put in the Intelligence Committee assessment, it would elevate the credibility and that he could drive Trump from office. He told Congress that it wasn't in the assessment. Well, it was. Can he be charged? Yes, he can. They eroded confidence and trust in the American government, particularly the FBI, CIA, and other agencies, single-handedly. They set back America considerably. James Comey needs daily therapy. He is so obsessed with his hatred of Trump. It's what drove the Russia hoax. He, more than anybody else, drove the witch hunt, and he can never get over the fact that he failed and got fired. And he hates that as well. On his way out the door, he purloined FBI documents and leaked them to the media with the plan that this will trigger the special counsel and drive Trump from office. But Mueller was appointed, his longtime mentor and friend. But in the end, his scheme failed. Wow. Thank you, Greg. Amazing reporting. And the whole scheme completely fell apart. Who was behind all this? You think it was just Comey? No, it was Hillary Clinton. And then on top of that was Obama. He was the conductor. And I do believe in the end, when all this comes out, one leads to another, which leads to another. And I do believe Epstein, Comey, Brennan, Obama, everything is connected, because these are the people that have been running the intelligence agencies. These are the people that have been using Epstein. These are the people covering for Epstein. I do believe Trump needed the narrative out there about Epstein, because we see the investigation was started when this information came out about Epstein. And what better way to make people talk about it? What better way to make the D's force the evidence while they're investigating the Russian collusion? I do believe in the end, this is all going to come together. And in the end, the people are going to see the truth. I do believe the storm is now forming. The storm right now is building. And I do believe in the end, when you see the coup, which is the Russia collusion coup, the impeachments, the indictments, the overthrow of the United States government, the assassination attempt, when you start to see all of this and all the evidence is being produced, you start to realize it was all of them. They were all doing this to protect themselves, to protect their system. That is what this is all about. It's about removing these people. First, you got to expose them. Then you have to get the people on your side to understand that these people are treasonous to this country. It wasn't just about Russian collusion. It went much, much further than that. And as it builds upon each other, that's what people are going to see. That's what people are going to understand. And then people are going to say, holy crap, we had a treasonous cabal, a criminal syndicate system in our country. We can never allow this to happen again. These people must face justice. I do believe that's what's coming after the midterms. I don't mean the day after. I do believe once we get the power back, I do believe we can go after all of these individuals. So right now, you can see the investigations have started. Can we bring them to trial right now? I don't think we have the judges and prosecutors in place to actually try these people. And I do believe this is why Trump right now is actually exposing the entire judiciary, because I do believe he wants to follow the rule of law, he wants to follow the Constitution, and he wants to use the court systems. Now, if he can't, he can make them enemy combatants because the judicial system is not operational, it's too corrupt, and we can have military tribunals. So I do believe he will try his best. He will try to get these judges and everyone else replaced, impeached. If it all fails, there's only one way. That is the military. Why? Because the patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.